Blood sprayed across the weathered boards as a man crumpled outside the Coyote's Grin Saloon, his six-shooter still warm in his dying hand. The sound of the fatal shot lingered in the air, mingling with piano notes that never faltered. Death was merely business in Bitter Creek. Salagi watched impassively from his corner table, fingers instinctively reaching for the medicine pouch hanging beneath his buckskin shirt. Inside lay a lock of Isabela's hair, cut from his sister's head after white raiders had riddled her small body with bullets meant for warriors. 15 winters had passed since that day, yet her final words still burned in his dreams. "Promise you'll protect those who cannot protect themselves, brother. Promise me." A glass shattered against the saloon floor, and the sound unremarkable, except for what followed the sharp crack of flesh striking flesh, then a whimper so faint it might have been mistaken for wind through prairie grass. "Worthless little rat." A woman's voice sliced through the momentary silence. "That's another day without food." Salagi's dark eyes cut through pipe smoke to find its source, a sharp-faced woman, with painted lips, gripping the arm of a child no older than 10. The girl's dress hung like sackcloth on her frail body, patches upon patches barely holding it together. Her face, gaunt and hollow-cheeked, bore unmistakable marks of chronic hunger and abuse. But it was her eyes that froze the breath in his lungs. For an instant, Isabela's face superimposed over the child's the same terror, the same silent plea for mercy that would not come. A young fawn caught in a hunter's snare, still standing but already wounded beyond recovery. "Get up and clean this mess before I give you something to really cry about." The woman thrust a rag into the girl's hands, pushing her toward the broken glass with enough force to send her stumbling. The medicine pouch seemed to burn against Salagi's chest. He hadn't come to this snake pit of a town by choice. Winter approached, and his small band of Cherokee survivors needed supplies to endure the months ahead. Bitter Creek was the closest trading post, a necessary evil, nothing more. What he hadn't expected was to find a ghost wearing flesh. The child worked methodically, gathering glass shards with raw, cracked hands, her movements betraying practiced efficiency. Not once did she look up until Salagi deliberately dropped a coin near her work. As she glanced up, their eyes met, and something ancient and wounded stirred in his chest. Marina. The sharp-faced woman appeared again, yanking the girl back by her collar. "Go fetch more ice from the cellar, now." She flashed a false smile at Salagi. "I'll get your drink, mister. That child's not fit to serve paying customers." "Whose child?" Salagi asked, his deep voice revealing nothing of the storm brewing within. The woman Isabella he'd heard the barkeep call her arranged her features into practiced patience. "My stepdaughter. Simple-minded, I'm afraid. Her mother died birthing her and her father." She gestured vaguely toward a man slumped at the bar, whiskey glass clutched in white-knuckled fingers. "John Flynn does his best, but the child needs firm guidance." As Isabella sauntered away, Salagi studied Flynn more carefully. Despite his disheveled appearance and florid complexion, something in his bone structure seemed oddly familiar. High cheekbones, the set of his jaw suggesting heritage beyond the white man's world. "That woman lies easier than most folks breathe." The voice belonged to an older barmaid who paused beside his table. "That girl's got a quicker mind than most in this town. Just had the misfortune of being born to a dead mother and a father who keeps his conscience pickled in whiskey." "You know the child?" Salagi kept his voice neutral. The barmaid's eyes darted nervously before she leaned closer. "I'm Mabel Johnson. Been cooking here since before Marina was born. Helped bring her into this world when her mama died." Her weathered face softened momentarily. "Catherine was a good woman, would turn in her grave if she knew what's become of her daughter." "And Flynn allows this treatment?" Salagi asked, though he already knew the answer. Mabel snorted softly. "That man's shoot. He's been so deep in the bottle for so long. He'd likely sell his shadow for another drink if Isabella told him to." She straightened as Isabella's gaze turned in their direction. Don't make trouble over it. Won't help the girl none if you do. As Mabel hurried away, Salagi observed the saloon with new awareness. The coyote's grin was like 100 others scattered across the frontier, a haven for the lawless and desperate. But something about this place felt particularly tainted, as if evil had seeped into the very timbers. Night descended, bringing with it the worst elements of frontier society. The saloon filled to capacity, miners flush with their month's earnings, cowboys celebrating the end of a cattle drive, drifters with hands never far from their weapons. Through it all, Marina moved like a shadow, collecting empty glasses, wiping spills, flinching at sudden movements. Near midnight, a disturbance erupted at the bar. A bearded man, eyes glazed with drink, grabbed Marina's arm as she passed. "Come here, pretty thing," he slurred, yanking her closer. "Bet you clean up nice underneath all that dirt." Before Salagi could move, Isabella materialized, detaching the man's fingers from Marina's arm with practiced efficiency. "Mr. Jenkins," she chided with false sweetness, "you know she's just the help. If you're looking for company, Rosie or Daisy would be delighted to oblige." Jenkins released Marina with a grunt. "Just being friendly, Isabella. Girls gotta learn the ways of the world sometime. And she will—" Isabella assured him, her smile never reaching her eyes. "When she's a bit older. For now she's more useful keeping this place clean." She turned to Marina, expression hardening. "Kitchen. Now. Those dishes won't wash themselves." As Marina scurried away, her gaze briefly met Salagi's across the room. In that fleeting connection, he glimpsed something that stopped his breath. Beneath the fear, a tiny flame of defiance still burned. Her spirit remained unbroken, like hot coal buried under ash, needing only the right breath to ignite. "Ooh, wait see a gehutsa," he whispered in Cherokee. "Little daughter?" Words his father had spoken when finding an orphaned fawn in the forest. Some creatures his father had taught him call to your spirit, even across boundaries of tribe and blood. After the crowd had thinned, Salagi positioned himself where he could observe the main floor unseen. Around 3 in the morning, Isabella approached Marina, who was sweeping beneath the tables. "You've missed spots all over," she hissed, wrenching the broom away. "And I saw you talking to that Indian. What did you tell him?" "Nothing." Marina stammered, backing away. "He just asked for a drink." Isabella grabbed her chin fingers, digging into hollow cheeks. "If I find out you've been running your mouth about family business, you'll wish you'd never been born. Understand?" When Marina nodded frantically, Isabella released her with a shove. "Finish up here, then clean the spittoons. And don't think about sneaking food. I counted every crust." After Isabella departed, Marina resumed sweeping shoulders, slumped with exhaustion. Just as Salagi was about to return to his room, he noticed her pause beside a table where a plate of half-eaten food had been abandoned. Glancing around, she quickly pocketed a piece of bread, then continued sweeping as if nothing had happened. That simple act of desperation, a child reduced to stealing scraps, solidified his resolve. Tomorrow, he would learn more. Tonight, he would ensure no further harm came to her while he could prevent it. Dawn broke over Bitter Creek, painting weathered buildings in deceptive gold. Salagi descended to find Marina on her hands and knees, scrubbing floorboards with mechanical precision. Even from a distance, he could see her favoring her right arm, wincing when putting weight on it. Fresh bruises darkened her face, joining older marks visible on her neck and arms. "Coffee?" the young bartender asked as Salagi approached. "Yes." He placed a coin on the counter, and information about the child. The bartender, jittery with a nervous tick in his left eye, glanced toward Marina. "Look, I just pour the drinks. Whatever happens in the Flynn family ain't my business, and if you're smart, it won't be yours either." He lowered his voice further. "Isabella's got connections. Her brother runs with the Blackwater gang." "The Blackwater gang?" Salagi repeated the name, stirring memories of wanted posters and whispered tales of robberies and murders across 3 territories. Due back any day now, the bartender continued. Word is Flynn's in deep with them, owes more than he could repay in 3 lifetimes. That's partly why. He nodded toward Marina without finishing the thought. As they spoke, Isabella emerged from the back office, surveying the room before fixing her gaze on Marina. Still not finished. She snapped, striding over to the child. I swear you get slower every day. Marina scrambled to scrub faster, her thin arms shaking. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll finish quick. You said that an hour ago. Isabella kicked the bucket of dirty water, sending it spilling across the freshly cleaned floor. Now, look what you've done. Clean it up and start again. And no breakfast until it's perfect. As Isabella stalked away, Marina stared at the spreading puddle, her shoulders slumping momentarily. Then she pressed her lips together, dipped her rag back in what remained in the bucket, and began again. Salagi approached, kneeling beside her, under the pretense of examining the wet floorboards. Here, he said softly, offering a biscuit concealed in his palm. Marina stared at the food, and then glanced anxiously toward Isabella across the room. I can't, she whispered, though hunger sharpened her gaze. Take it, Salagi insisted. Eat quickly. After another moment's hesitation, she snatched the biscuit, concealing it in her skirt. Thank you. She murmured the words barely audible. What happened to your arm? He asked, noting how she favored it. I fell. She replied automatically, the lie hollow from repetition. Salagi was about to press further when a booming voice interrupted them. Cherokee. What the hell are you doing with my daughter? John Flynn stood swaying at the foot of the stairs, bloodshot eyes narrowed at Salagi. He staggered forward, every inch the ruined man, once handsome features ravaged by alcohol and dissipation. Your daughter dropped something, Salagi replied, evenly rising to his full height. I was returning it. Before Flynn could respond, Isabella appeared at his side, her hand possessively gripping his arm. John, darling, you should be resting. Her eyes were cold as they flicked between Salagi and Marina. Marina, why aren't you finished? And why is this gentleman bothering you? He wasn't, Marina began, but Isabella cut her off with a sharp gesture. Kitchen now. As Marina scrambled away, Isabella turned her full attention to Salagi. I don't recall inviting Indians to speak with my stepdaughter. She said honey over steel. I don't recall needing your permission, Salagi replied calmly. Isabella's painted smile tightened. Bitter Creek doesn't take kindly to strangers who poke their noses where they don't belong. Folks have been known to disappear. Flynn, already losing interest in the confrontation, tugged at Isabella's sleeve. Need a drink, Bella? In a moment, dear. She patted his arm without taking her eyes off Salagi. I'm just explaining to this gentleman that he should be on his way. I'll leave when my business is concluded, Salagi stated. Not before. Throughout the day, Salagi gathered information while procuring supplies. Silver loosened tongues, and by sunset, he had pieced together the story. John Flynn, once wealthy from a mining strike, had been a widower with an infant daughter when he met Isabella Rawlins, newly arrived from back east. Their marriage had coincided with Flynn's steady decline into alcoholism and gambling debt. It's not right, admitted the elderly woman who ran the general store after Salagi had purchased a substantial amount of goods from her. That child hardly sees daylight, works from dawn till midnight or later. But nobody crosses Isabella, not since Sheriff Billings turned up dead. Dead? Salagi inquired. Your throat cut in the alley behind the saloon 2 years back. The woman whispered, glancing nervously around her empty store. Happened right after he started asking questions about how the Flynn girl was being treated. New Marshal learned his lesson quick enough. By nightfall, Salagi had confirmed his fears. Marina was trapped in a hell with no escape, with legal recourse non-existent. As darkness fell, he secured his supplies at the livery stable, but kept what he might need for a swift departure. Then, using shadows as allies, he circled behind the saloon. Through a grimy basement window, he glimpsed Marina organizing liquor bottles by lamplight. Once, when she thought herself unobserved, she pulled something from her pocket, a crude doll made of knotted rags, and whispered to it, before quickly hiding it away as footsteps approached. The cellar door opened, and Isabella's voice carried clearly. "Are you finished yet? The evening crowd is arriving, and those spittoons still need emptying." "Almost done, ma'am," Marina replied, her voice strengthening. "Just 3 more crates to unpack." "Well, hurry up. And remember what I said, stay out of sight tonight. Mr. Rawlins is coming with important friends, and I don't want them distracted." Mr. Rawlins, Isabella's brother, connected to the Blackwater gang. If they were arriving tonight, Marina might face even greater danger. Shortly after 8 o'clock, 4 riders arrived, dismounting with the easy confidence of men accustomed to inspiring fear. Through a side window, Salagi observed Isabella greeting them effusively, leading them to a reserved corner table. Flynn appeared briefly, shaking hands with the largest man, presumably Isabella's brother, before retreating to the bar. For over an hour, Salagi watched as food and drinks flowed freely to their table. When Marina appeared briefly to empty a bucket outside, he glimpsed fresh tear tracks on her face in the moonlight. Moving closer to the window, he positioned himself to overhear the conversation at the outlaws' table. Isabella was speaking, her voice low but distinct. "Worth at least 500, Jonathan. She's young, but she'll grow into it. And she's unbroken stock, if you know what I mean." Her brother, a bearded man with cold eyes, stroked his chin thoughtfully. "Bit scrawny. And that mouth on her? Took some nerve to talk back like that. Nothing a firm hand can't fix," Isabella assured him. "Besides, Lagrange has specific tastes. He's been asking for something fresher than the usual girls. And Flynn, he's agreeable." Isabella's laugh was brittle. "John, he'll sign whatever I put in front of him if there's a bottle involved. Besides, the amount he owes you boys, everything in this place is collateral, including her." The realization of what he was hearing sent ice through Salagi's veins. They were planning to sell Marina to someone named Lagrange, a man whose specific tastes made even hardened criminals speak in euphemisms. "When can you have her ready?" Rawlins asked. "Tomorrow night," Isabella replied promptly. "I'll tell Flynn she's being sent to a boarding school back east. We can make the exchange at your camp." "Good. Lagrange is meeting us at Eagle Canyon the day after tomorrow. I don't want to keep him waiting, not with what he's paying." The back door opened again as Isabella emerged with one of the outlaws, a lean man with a pockmarked face and distinctive limp. "Nuckus told you she needs to be unmarked," the man was saying, his voice carrying a mocking edge. "Lagrange specified that clearly. Man pays extra for girls without bruises." "And she will be," Isabella hissed back. "But the little snake tried to run away this afternoon after she overheard us talking. I had to make an example." "You've got her locked up." Isabella nodded. "In the root cellar. Don't worry, Pete, a night without food or water will make her docile enough by tomorrow evening." They returned inside, leaving Salagi with crucial information. Marina was being held in a root cellar, having tried to escape after discovering her fate, a sign her spirit remained unbroken, despite years of abuse. A flickering light caught his attention, a lantern carried by Mabel crossing the yard. On impulse, he stepped into her path, causing her to gasp in alarm. "Lord have mercy," she exclaimed. "You like to scare the life out of me." "I need your help," Salagi said quietly. "They're planning to sell Marina tomorrow." Mabel's expression hardened. "I know. Heard them talking." She glanced back toward the saloon. "Been working here since before that child was born. Her mother would turn in her grave. Will you help me get her out tonight?" She studied him for a long moment. Why risk yourself for her? She's nothing to you. Because no one else will, he answered simply. And because I made a promise once. In Mabel's small cabin with the door firmly closed, she spoke freely while gathering supplies. Food, water, a clean dress. There's something you should know about John Flynn, she said, lowering her voice, though they were alone. Flynn wasn't always called Flynn. He changed his name when he came west. She hesitated, then continued. I once heard him talking in his cups, speaking words that sounded like yours. And Isabella called him Adahi during a fight, mocking like, Salagi froze. Adahi lives in the woods, a Cherokee name. There's more. Mabel continued, reaching into a small box on her shelf. Last winter, when Flynn was in a bad way with fever, he kept calling out a name, Degadoga. Said he was sorry over and over. The name struck Salagi like physical force. Degadoga, his father's name. Could Flynn be Diwali, his own cousin who had vanished from their village after betraying their location to white settlers 20 years ago? The betrayal that led to the raid that killed Salagi's family. Mabel placed a small object in Salagi's palm, a carved wooden fox, unmistakably Cherokee in design. Not just any carving, but one bearing his father's distinctive mark on the bottom. I found this hidden in Flynn's coat years ago when I was mending it, she explained. Never gave it back, figured he was too drunk to notice. Salagi's fingers tightened around the carving, a gift his father had made for Diwali before the betrayal. There could be no doubt now. Marina doesn't just have any old rag doll, Mabel added. Flynn made it for her when she was born, put something inside it. Said it was her heritage and she should never lose it. Said it would protect her from the curse. Curse? Salagi asked sharply. Mabel shrugged. Man was delirious with fever. Something about silver and blood spirits and vengeance. Didn't make much sense. With the key to the root cellar and supplies secured, Salagi made his way to the small structure behind the saloon. The padlock yielded easily, and he descended the earthen steps into near total darkness. Marina, he called softly. A rustling came from the corner, followed by a small, frightened voice. Who's there? Salagi, from the saloon. I've come to help you. The Indian who gave me the biscuit. Yes. A tiny figure emerged from behind stacked crates, moving cautiously, arms wrapped around herself against the cellar's chill. In the faint light filtering from above, he could see her face was paler than before, one cheek swollen and discolored. Why? She asked, stopping at a safe distance. Why would you help me? Because what they plan to do to you is wrong, he replied, kneeling to her eye level. I heard them talking. Do you know what Isabella intends? Marina nodded, her chin lifting slightly despite the fear in her eyes. To sell me. To a man who hurts girls. Her voice faltered. She caught me trying to run. I can take you away from here, tonight. But we must be quick and quiet. She studied him with unsettling intensity. Somewhere safe where Isabella and her brother can't find you. Marina took a small step forward. Will my father come looking for me? The question carried innocent hope, despite everything the man had allowed to happen to her. I don't know, Salagi answered honestly. But if he does, he won't find you. She seemed to consider this, then whispered, Are you going to hurt me? The question broke something inside him. No, he said firmly. I swear it on the memory of my sister. This seemed to convince her, for she nodded and took another step forward. I need to get something first. She darted back to her hiding place and returned, clutching her rag doll. My father made it for me before I could remember, she explained. It's all I have of him, the real him from before. They escaped through town, using shadows as allies, avoiding the few drunks staggering between saloon and boarding house. At the livery stable, Salagi paid the sleepy stable boy extra to look the other way. Soon they were riding into the darkness, taking a game trail away from the main road. Hold the mane like this. Salagi instructed, positioning Marina's hands correctly. I'll keep you secure. After an hour's ride, they made camp in a small canyon. By firelight, Marina ate ravenously, though Salagi cautioned her to pace herself. He noticed how she kept the rag doll close, occasionally touching it, as if for reassurance. May I see your doll? He asked gently. Marina hesitated, then carefully handed it over. Her name is Catherine, after my mother. The doll was crudely made, but with evident care, scraps of fabric knotted and stitched together, button eyes, yarn hair. But as Salagi held it, he felt something hard within a small object sewn into the doll's chest. Without asking permission that might be denied, he carefully felt the outline, a disc perhaps 2 inches across. Your father put something inside her, didn't he? He asked. Marina's eyes widened. How did you know? Mabel told me. Do you know what it is? She shook her head. Pa said never to take it out, that it was my heritage and would keep me safe. But it didn't, she added bitterly. Nothing kept me safe after he started drinking. Salagi returned the doll, but filed the information away. Whatever was hidden inside might explain more about Flynn or Diwali if his suspicions were correct. Try to sleep now, he told her, spreading a blanket near the fire. We need to move again before dawn. Marina settled onto the blanket but continued to watch him. What if they follow us? They'll try, he acknowledged. But I know paths they don't. By dawn, they were moving again, angling northeast toward the mission settlement. Around midday, as they rested beside a stream, the distant sound of hoofbeats reached them. Immediately, Salagi doused their small fire and led Marina and their horse deeper into a thicket of cottonwoods. 3 riders passed nearby, Rollins Pete in a tracker with a face as weathered as old leather. Though they didn't spot Salagi and Marina, their conversation carried clearly. They're heading northeast, the tracker announced, studying the ground with practiced eyes. Toward the mission, most likely. We can cut them off at Thunder Pass. Rollins decided, his voice cold and methodical. That's the only way through those hills with a horse. Pete laughed, the sound like stones sliding against each other. Makes it a short hunt when the prey's so predictable. After they departed, Salagi made a swift decision. They know where we're heading. We'll have to take another route, one they won't expect. Is there another way? Marina asked anxiously. An old hunting trail my people used generations ago. It's difficult, but we can manage it. By late afternoon, they stood before a seemingly impenetrable wall of rock. The trail, barely visible even to Salagi's experienced eye, wound up the cliff face, narrowing in places to hardly the width of a man's shoulders, with a sheer drop on one side. We'll have to lead the horse, he explained, dismounting and helping Marina down. Walk carefully, exactly where I walk. Marina nodded solemnly. I can do it. I'm stronger than I look. I know you are, Salagi replied, meaning it. The ascent was painstaking. Each step measured, each handhold tested. Marina pressed herself against the rock wall, eyes fixed ahead, rather than on the void beside them, her determination never faltering despite the obvious danger. Near the top, disaster struck. A section of trail crumbled beneath Marina's foot, sending her sliding toward the edge with a terrified cry. Salagi lunged, catching her wrist, just as she began to fall, hauling her back to safety, with a strength born of desperation. I've got you, he gasped, holding her trembling form against him. You're safe. Marina clung to him, her entire body shaking. I dropped Catherine, she whispered, staring in horror down the cliff face, where the rag doll had fallen onto a narrow ledge 30 feet below. Salagi followed her gaze. The doll, and whatever secret it contained, lay tantalizingly visible, but in a spot impossible to reach without climbing gear. We have to leave her, he said gently. Our lives matter more. But Pa said, your father isn't here, Salagi reminded her. And staying alive is more important than anything in that doll. Though tears filled her eyes, Marina nodded, showing a maturity far beyond her years. They continued upward, reaching the ridge as twilight descended, exhausted but alive. From their vantage point, they could see for miles. Far below in the main pass, 3 tiny figures on horseback were visible: Rawlins and his men, waiting in ambush for prey that would never arrive. But something else caught Salagi's eye. In the distance, 2 more riders approached from the direction of Bitter Creek. "They've called in reinforcements," he murmured grimly. They continued along the ridge till it began to descend into a sheltered valley thick with pine forests. As darkness fell, Salagi selected a defensive position, a hollow surrounded by fallen logs that would shield their small fire from view. While Marina slept fitfully, Salagi kept watch, his thoughts troubled. What had Mabel meant by Flynn's delirious words about a curse? What was hidden in the doll? Something valuable enough that Flynn had warned Marina never to lose it, yet not valuable enough for him to protect his daughter properly. He was still pondering these questions at dawn when Marina stirred. "I had a dream about my father," she said, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "He was singing in your language, but he was crying too." Before Salagi could respond, a twig snapped nearby, the unmistakable sound of someone trying to move quietly through the forest. He motioned Marina to silence, reaching for his rifle. "Come out, Indian," called a familiar voice. "I know you're in there with my daughter." John Flynn emerged from the trees, unarmed hands raised to show peaceful intentions. His eyes were clearer than Salagi had yet seen them, his manner steady, despite what must have been crushing withdrawal symptoms. Marina whispered, disbelieving. Salagi kept his rifle trained on the man. "That's close enough, Flynn. Or should I call you Diwali?" Flynn, or Diwali, froze, shock registering on his face. "How did you—" He peered more closely at Salagi. "Gods above. Little Salagi Degadoga's son. Not so little anymore." Salagi replied coldly. "Not since I had to bury my father and sister after the raid you led the white men to." Marina gasped. "Pa, what is he saying?" Flynn's face crumpled. "I never meant for anyone to die. I just wanted to punish the council for exiling me. I told them where the village was, but I didn't know they would." He trailed off, unable to finish. "You betrayed your people for gold and a white man's name," Salagi accused. "And now you would betray your daughter for whiskey." "No," Flynn protested. "That's why I'm here, to stop you, both of you." He turned pleading eyes to Marina. "Where's Catherine, your doll?" "She fell," Marina replied, confusion evident in her voice. "On the cliff." "Why, Pa?" Flynn's face drained of color. "Then we're all dead. Rawlins isn't just after Marina. He's after what's in that doll." "Which is," Salagi demanded. "A silver medallion Cherokee made, but marked with the location of a lost Spanish gold cache. I found it years ago." Flynn ran a shaking hand through his hair. "But it's not just treasure, it carries the blood curse of Guardian Rock. The shaman warned me never to remove it from tribal lands, that it would bring death to any who possessed it outside the protection of sacred ground. And you hid it in a child's toy." Salagi's disgust was palpable. "I thought it would protect her." Flynn defended, his voice breaking. "The curse only takes those who seek the gold out of greed. Marina's innocence shielded it and her. As long as she had it, the spirits would watch over her. But now—" He looked fearfully over his shoulder. "Rawlins has men everywhere. He'll find it, unleash the curse, and kill anyone in his way." "Like you expect me to believe this?" Salagi asked incredulously. "Believe what you want," Flynn replied. "But I've seen what happens to those who find that gold. 20 years ago, the men I led to our village, they all died within a year, horrible deaths each one. That's why I hid the medallion in Catherine and gave it to Marina. Her mother's blood-white blood mixed with mine might break the cycle. keep her safe. A gunshot cracked through the forest, and Flynn staggered red, blooming across his chest. More shots followed as Salagi grabbed Marina and their gear, dragging her behind the fallen logs as bullets splintered wood around them. "Run for the trees," he shouted, returning fire to cover their retreat. "Stay low." Marina hesitated, staring at her father's fallen form. "Pa, he's gone," Salagi said harshly, seeing the lifeless stare in Flynn's open eyes. "Run or join him." They fled deeper into the forest as voices shouted behind them. Their horse, startled by gunfire, had bolted, leaving them on foot with Rollins and at least 5 men in pursuit. "The medallion must be worth a fortune," Salagi said as they ran. "Otherwise, Rollins wouldn't risk this much manpower." "I don't care about any medallion," Marina gasped. "I just want to live." The chase continued through the morning, a deadly game of hide and seek, through increasingly rough terrain. Salagi used every Cherokee tracking trick in reverse, doubling back, walking through streams, creating false trails to confuse their pursuers. By midday, they had gained some distance, but were far from safe. Worse, they had been driven away from the mission, deeper into wilderness, where help was non-existent. "We need to find water," Salagi murmured, noting Marina's parched lips and his own raging thirst. "And a defensible position." They followed a dry creek bed that led them to a narrow canyon with steep walls rising on either side. At its narrowest point, Salagi spotted something that made his heart race: ancient carvings etched into the stone, unmistakably Cherokee in design. "Guardian Rock," he whispered, recognizing the symbols from stories his grandfather had told. "We found it." "What is it?" Marina asked, gazing up at the petroglyphs. "Sacred ground." Salagi explained, remembering Flynn's words about the curse. This canyon was once used for vision quests by Cherokee warriors. They followed the canyon as it widened, eventually discovering a small spring bubbling from the rock face. After drinking gratefully, Salagi studied their surroundings with a tactical eye. The canyon narrowed again ahead, creating a natural bottleneck. If they could lure their pursuers into that confined space, "I have a plan," he told Marina, explaining what he intended. "But it's dangerous. If it fails, you must run toward the setting sun. The mission lies that way, no more than half a day's journey." As they prepared their defenses, Salagi collected specific plants and roots. He recognized ones his mother had taught him to use for medicine and other purposes. From one, he extracted a sticky sap that he mixed with dried leaves and pine needles. "What's that for?" Marina asked, watching him work. "Parbor Cherokee smoke medicine," he explained. "It will help us see through the haze while blinding our enemies." By late afternoon, they heard their pursuers approaching, voices echoing off canyon walls, hoofbeats reverberating on stone. Salagi positioned Marina in a small alcove high above the canyon floor. "Stay hidden no matter what happens," he instructed, handing her his spare pistol. "Use this only if someone finds you." Marina clutched the weapon, her small face set with determination. "I won't let you die for me." "That's not the plan," he assured her, though both knew the odds they faced. Salagi took position behind a cluster of boulders near the canyon's narrowest point. Below him, he'd arranged a precarious stack of rocks, held in place by a single supporting stone attached to a tripwire fashioned from his belt. Beside him lay bundles of the smoke medicine, ready to be ignited. The riders appeared at the canyon's entrance: Rollins, Pete the Tracker, and 3 others. They entered cautiously, weapons drawn, eyes scanning the rock faces above. "Spread out," Rollins ordered. "They're here somewhere. The girl's worth 500 alive, but the Indian's worth nothing. Shoot on sight." The men advanced slowly, their horses picking their way carefully over the rocky ground. When the first rider crossed the tripwire, Salagi struck flint to steel, igniting the smoke medicine. Dense white smoke billowed instantly, filling the narrow passage with blinding fog that smelled of cedar and sage. Simultaneously, the supporting stone dislodged, sending a cascade of rocks thundering down. Chaos erupted below. Men shouted in confusion as horses reared in panic. 2 riders disappeared beneath the rock slide, while others fired blindly into the smoke. Protected by the sacred smoke that Cherokee hunters had used for generations, Salagi could see what his enemies could not. He fired methodically, each shot finding its mark. One outlaw fell, then another. But the smoke was thinning, and Rollins and Pete had taken cover behind a boulder, returning fire with increasing accuracy. A bullet grazed Salagi's thigh, another splintered stone inches from his head. "You're dead, Indian," Rollins shouted, his voice echoing off canyon walls. "You and the girl both—" Salagi's ammunition was running low, 3 shots remaining. He needed to make them count. Taking careful aim, he fired at Pete, catching the outlaw in the shoulder. The man howled in pain, but remained behind cover. A shot from another direction caught Salagi by surprise, burning across his ribs, spinning him against the rock face. A third outlaw had circled behind, using the higher ground to gain advantage. Blood soaked Salagi's buckskin shirt as he scrambled for better cover, returning fire with his second-to-last bullet. The outlaw fell tumbling down the rocky slope. Pain radiated through Salagi's body with each heartbeat. The wound wasn't immediately fatal, but blood loss would weaken him quickly. From his position, he could see Rollins signaling Pete to circle around, while he provided covering fire, a classic flanking maneuver that would leave Salagi exposed. With 1 bullet remaining and strength ebbing, Salagi faced a desperate choice: save his final shot for Rollins, the greater threat, or use it on Pete, who was closer to discovering Marina's hiding place. The decision was taken from him when a small figure suddenly appeared on a ledge above Marina, pistol in hand, taking aim at Pete as the outlaw climbed toward her position. "Marina, no," Salagi shouted, but his warning came too late. Her shot echoed through the canyon, going wide, as the pistol's recoil proved too much for her small hands. The noise revealed her position, drawing immediate fire from Rollins. Marina ducked behind a boulder as bullets chipped stone around her. With Rollins distracted, Salagi seized his chance. Abandoning his rifle, he drew his hunting knife and charged the outlaw's position. Rollins turned too late, managing to fire a wild shot that missed completely before Salagi crashed into him with the full force of his body. They tumbled among the rocks, grappling in a desperate struggle. Despite his wound, Salagi fought with the strength of someone protecting not just a child, but his chance at redemption for failing to save Isabella years ago. "I'll skin you alive." Rollins snarled, fingers clawing for Salagi's eyes. "Then I'll find that brat and deliver her to LaGrange in pieces." The threat against Marina awakened something primal in Salagi, a rage that transcended pain and weakness. With a roar that echoed his ancestors' war cries, he summoned strength from some deep reserve, reversing their positions and pinning Rollins beneath him. "This is for Marina," he growled, knife poised at the outlaw's throat. "And for every child you've ever harmed." "Wait!" Rollins gasped, eyes wide with sudden terror. "The medallion! It's cursed! Kill me and you'll die too!" "I don't fear your superstitions," Salagi replied coldly. "It's no superstition," Rollins pleaded. "Flynn told me everything the Cherokee cursed the sacred ground, all of it. Why do you think I drove you into this canyon? This is Guardian Rock. We're all walking dead men, unless—" A shot rang out, and Rollins jerked beneath Salagi. Blood bubbled from the outlaw's mouth as his eyes glazed over. Salagi spun to face this new threat knife, ready despite his weakening state. To his shock, Mabel Johnson stood 10 feet away, a smoking revolver in her weathered hands. Behind her, Pete lay sprawled on the ground, a bullet hole between his eyes. "Mabel," Salagi gasped, struggling to understand her presence. "Didn't think I'd let you two face these snakes alone, did you?" She asked, a grim smile twisting her lips. Been waiting 20 years to put a bullet in Jonathan Rawlins. Marina emerged cautiously from her hiding place, rushing to Salagi's side when she saw his blood-soaked shirt. "You're hurt bad." "I'll live," he assured her, though the world had begun to spin alarmingly. "Mabel, how did you find us?" The older woman's expression darkened. "Wasn't hard. Followed the Blackwater gang. They weren't exactly being subtle." She knelt beside Salagi, examining his wound with practiced hands. "We need to stop this bleeding." As Mabel tended his injuries using herbs from her bag and strips torn from her petticoat to fashion bandages, Salagi studied her with newfound suspicion. "How did you know which way they'd go? How did you get here ahead of them?" Mabel's hands stilled momentarily. "There's things you don't know about me, Cherokee." She sighed heavily. "I wasn't always a cook in a two-bit saloon. Used to ride with the Blackwater gang years back before Rawlins took over and turned it truly rotten." "You were an outlaw?" Marina asked, eyes wide with disbelief. "Was," Mabel emphasized. "Till they killed a family for sport, mother, father, little boy, no older than 6. I couldn't stomach it anymore." Her face softened as she looked at Marina. "When you were born, you reminded me so much of my own daughter lost to fever years before. Watching Isabella treat you like she did. Well, I stayed to protect you best I could. But why help us now?" Salagi pressed, wincing as Mabel tightened a bandage. "Because I know what's in that doll," she replied grimly. "And I know we're sitting right where we need to be, Guardian Rock, sacred ground. Only place the medallion can be safely destroyed." Marina gasped. "You knew about the curse?" Girl, I've seen it work. 20 men from the original gang all dead within a year of finding that Spanish cache. Horrible deaths, flesh rotting while they still walked mines, failing some just dropped dead for no reason doctors could explain." Mabel finished securing Salagi's bandage. "Flynn was right about one thing, that medallion is evil. But he was wrong to think it would protect you. It was drawing darkness to you, child. The doll is gone," Salagi reminded her. "Fallen on a ledge we can't reach." Mabel's expression turned triumphant as she reached into her bag. "Not anymore." She withdrew the tattered rag doll, causing Marina to cry out in surprise. "Found it on my way up. The ledge was accessible from another trail, one I remembered from years back." Marina reached for Catherine, but Mabel held the doll back. "Wait, child. We need to do this properly." She turned to Salagi. "You know the old ways. We need to free the medallion here at Guardian Rock and return it to the earth with the proper words." Though pain clouded his thoughts, Salagi recognized the gravity of the situation. If even half of what Flynn and Mabel claimed was true, the medallion held power beyond its material value, a darkness that had already claimed too many lives. "Give me the doll," he said, extending his hand. With careful movements, he used his knife to open a seam along the doll's chest. From within, he extracted a silver disc about 2 inches across, ancient in appearance, its surface etched with symbols that combined Cherokee patterns with Spanish numerals and landmarks. The medallion seemed to pulse with malevolence in his palm. Even Marina, who had carried it unknowingly for years, drew back instinctively. "It feels wrong," she whispered. Salagi nodded grimly. "The ancestors speak through you." He turned to Mabel. "Where exactly in this canyon must it be returned?" "The pool beneath the waterfall," she replied without hesitation. "Where the canyon ends." Supporting each other, the unlikely trio made their way deeper into the canyon. Salagi leaned heavily on Mabel, while Marina walked ahead, occasionally looking back with worried eyes at the blood that continued to seep through Salagi's bandages, despite Mabel's best efforts. The canyon gradually widened, its walls rising higher on either side. Ancient petroglyphs became more numerous, hunting scenes, spirit animals, and symbols of power etched by Cherokee hands centuries before. Finally, they reached the canyon's end, where a small waterfall cascaded from the rock face above, forming a clear pool surrounded by lush vegetation, an oasis in the otherwise harsh terrain. Here, the petroglyphs were concentrated most densely centered around an image of a stylized hand with a spiral in its palm, the hand of the ancestors. Salagi murmured, recognizing the sacred symbol. "What do we do?" Marina asked, her voice hushed with instinctive reverence. Drawing on memories of ceremonies witnessed in his youth, Salagi knelt painfully at the pool's edge. "Water purifies," he explained, dipping the medallion into the clear liquid. "Earth contains. Fire transforms. Air carries away." From his medicine pouch, he extracted pinches of sacred herbs, tobacco, cedar, and sage, which he sprinkled onto the medallion as he spoke words in Cherokee, asking the ancestors to reclaim what was theirs and break the chain of suffering the medallion had caused. "Now," he said, looking to Marina, "you must be the one to return it. The curse touched you but did not claim you. Your innocence protected you." Marina hesitated, then stepped forward, taking the medallion in her small hand. Without prompting, she waded into the pool until the water reached her waist. There, at its deepest point, she released the medallion, watching as it sank into the clear depths. As it disappeared from view, a breath of wind stirred through the canyon, unnaturally strong and warm, carrying the scent of summer storms. For a brief moment, the petroglyphs seemed to shimmer with inner light. Then all was still again. "It's done," Mabel whispered, helping Salagi to his feet. "The curse is broken." Marina returned to shore, her dress soaked, but her face alight with something like peace. "I feel lighter," she said simply. They made camp by the pool, all three too exhausted to travel further. Using supplies salvaged from the dead outlaws, Mabel prepared a simple meal while changing Salagi's bandages again. The bleeding had finally stopped, but fever had begun to set in. "You need proper doctoring," she told him frankly. "We need to get you to the mission by tomorrow." "Will he live?" Marina asked bluntly, her eyes fixed on Salagi's pale face. "If the Creator wills it," Mabel replied. "He's strong and he's got something to live for." As night fell, Marina curled against Salagi's side, careful not to disturb his wounds. "Thank you," she whispered, "for hearing me when I was hungry." Despite the pain that radiated with each heartbeat, Salagi felt a sense of completion wash over him. Atsila's final request had been fulfilled, that he had protected one who could not protect herself. The circle was complete. "Rest now," he murmured, stroking her hair. "Tomorrow brings a new path." Dawn revealed Salagi's condition had worsened overnight, fever burning high, his breathing shallow. Mabel's face grew grave as she examined him. "We need to move now," she decided. "Marina, help me make a travois. We'll drag him if we have to." Using branches and blankets, they constructed a crude but functional travois that could be pulled by one of the outlaws' horses that had returned overnight. With Salagi secured, they began the grueling journey toward the mission, Mabel leading the horse, while Marina walked alongside, holding Salagi's hand when the terrain allowed. The journey seemed endless, each step a victory against exhaustion and fear. By mid-afternoon, Salagi had lost consciousness entirely, his skin burning with fever despite Mabel's herbal remedies. Marina refused to leave his side, talking constantly to him, though he could no longer respond. "You can't die," she told him fiercely. "You promised to take me somewhere safe." When the white walls of the mission finally appeared in the valley below, Marina ran ahead screaming for help. Sister Maria and two mission brothers rushed to meet them, faces alarmed at the blood-soaked travois and the exhausted child leading them. "Please," Marina begged, clutching Sister Maria's habit. "Help him. He saved me." The next days passed in a haze of pain and healing for Salagi. Mission doctors worked tirelessly to clean and stitch his wounds, fighting the infection that had taken hold. Throughout his fever dreams, one constant remained a small hand, holding his young voice, telling him stories, or simply saying, You must live over and over like a prayer. When consciousness finally returned on the fourth day, Salagi found Marina asleep in a chair beside his bed, her head resting on the edge of his mattress. Mabel sat nearby, darning a sock with practiced motions. "Welcome back to the living," she said quietly, seeing his eyes open. "That child hasn't left your side for more than minutes at a time." "How long?" Salagi's voice was a cracked whisper. 4 days. Fever broke last night." Mabel set aside her darning. "Mission's got a telegraph. While you were dancing with death, I sent word about the Blackwater gang. Territorial marshal's been hunting them for years, seemed pleased as punch to hear Rollins is dead." She hesitated, then added, "There's more news. Judge William Harrington of Boston has been searching for his granddaughter, Catherine Flynn's daughter, since learning of her existence last year. Been offering rewards for information about her whereabouts." "Marina's grandfather," Salagi murmured, looking at the sleeping child. "The man's sending a representative to escort her east." Mabel confirmed. "Should arrive next week. He's offering me a position in his household too. Seems he wants someone familiar around while the child settles in." The news brought conflicting emotions: joy that Marina would have a safe home, and opportunity sadness at the prospect of separation. In the short time since finding her in that saloon, this child had worked her way into his heart, becoming not just a duty or obligation, but something far more precious. Marina stirred her eyes, fluttering open to find Salagi watching her. For a moment, she simply stared, as if not trusting her senses. Then, with a cry of joy, she threw herself carefully against his chest. "You came back, I knew you would. I promised I would protect you," he reminded her gently. "That includes staying alive to finish the job." In the days that followed, as Salagi's strength gradually returned, he and Marina spent hours together in the mission's peaceful gardens. She told him about her lessons with the sisters, her newfound love of books, and her excitement tinged with nervousness about going to live with a grandfather she had never met. "Will you come with me to Boston?" she asked one evening as they watched the sunset paint the mountains in gold and crimson. Salagi shook his head gently. "My path leads west to what remains of my people. Yours leads east to education and opportunities I cannot imagine. But they could cross again," she insisted, eyes bright with determination. "When I'm older," he smiled, touched by her certainty. "Perhaps. The world has a way of bringing together those who are meant to meet." The day of parting arrived too soon. Judge Harrington's representative, a kindly gentleman named Mr. Pearson, had come with letters and photographs showing a distinguished elderly man with Marina's eyes and a fine home near the sea where she would live. Mabel, dressed in new clothes, befitting her position as companion to a judge's granddaughter, supervised the loading of their trunks onto the stagecoach. As the moment of departure grew close, Marina sought out Salagi, who stood a little apart from the bustle, still moving carefully due to his healing wounds. "I have something for you," she said, pressing a small object wrapped in cloth into his hand. Unwrapping it, Salagi found a carefully carved wooden horse, small but remarkably detailed, for one made by such young hands. "Sister Maria helped me finish it," Marina admitted, "but I did most of it myself." "It's beautiful," he told her, genuinely moved. "I will keep it always." "And I'll keep practicing," she promised. "When I find you again, I'll show you how much better I've gotten." From his medicine pouch, Salagi extracted a small black stone-smooth river rock with a natural hole through its center. "This is a seeing stone," he explained, placing it in her palm. "Cherokee children use them to recognize spirits and truth. When you look through it, you see the world as it truly is, not as others would have you see it." Marina closed her fingers around the stone, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I won't forget," she whispered, then impulsively threw her arms around his waist in a fierce hug. Thank you for hearing me when I was hungry. And thank you, he replied softly, for showing me that some promises can be kept even after they seem broken. As the stagecoach pulled away, Marina leaned out the window, calling back to him. I'll find you again, I promise. Salagi raised his hand in the Cherokee gesture of blessing remaining, until the coach disappeared from view, carrying Marina Harrington toward a future bright with possibilities she had never dared imagine during her years of captivity in Bitter Creek. 5 years later, as autumn painted the Cherokee lands in golds and reds, a package arrived for Salagi at the small settlement where he now taught young children the traditions of their people. It had traveled a winding path to reach him, passing through trading posts and army forts before finally arriving. Inside was a letter written in precise, educated handwriting signed Marina Catherine Harrington, and beginning simply, I have not forgotten. Have you? She wrote of life in Boston with her grandfather, of schools and books and music lessons, of a house near the sea and summers in the countryside. She had won a prize in a carving exhibition and dreamed of creating sculptures that would help others understand the beauty of the West and its peoples. Enclosed with the letter was an exquisitely carved wooden figure of a Cherokee warrior on horseback, detailed down to the feather in his hair and the bow in his hand. The craftsmanship was remarkable, especially for one so young. But what touched Salagi most was the passage near the end. Grandfather has promised that when I turn 16, if I still wish it, we will travel west. I have told him of the Cherokee and of the man who taught me that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. He says he would like to meet such a man. I look through my seeing stone often, especially when decisions are difficult or when others try to tell me what I should believe. Through it, I see truths they cannot, that strength comes in many forms, that heritage is not defined by blood alone, and that a promise made in kindness can change the course of a life. The hunger that once defined me has been replaced by abundance. But I haven't forgotten what it means to starve for food, for kindness, for hope. This memory serves not as a burden, but as fuel for my determination to help others as I was once helped. That night, beneath a blanket of stars, Salagi performed a sacred ceremony rarely seen since the days before the great displacement of his people. He placed Marina's carved warrior figure at the center of a small circle of stones surrounding it, with offerings of tobacco cornmeal and cedar. As smoke rose from the sacred herbs, he spoke in Cherokee words his father had taught him long ago. The circle remains unbroken. What was lost returns in new form. The ancestors are pleased. In the dancing flames, he thought he glimpsed Adsela's smile, not as she had been in death, but as she had been in life, full of joy and promise. Her final request had been fulfilled in a way neither of them could have imagined. Outside a fine Boston home, from 3,000 miles away, a young girl stood on a balcony looking westward through a stone with a hole in its center. Through this simple lens, the stars seemed to arrange themselves into patterns her teachers had never named, but that she somehow recognized Cherokee patterns ancient and enduring. A whisper once choked with hunger now sang across the distance, carried by winds that recognized no boundaries of time or place. Two souls, the warrior who had found redemption and the child whose plea had pierced his heart, remained connected by something stronger than blood, more enduring than memory, as timeless as the land itself. A promise kept, a hunger satisfied, a circle complete.